Hello, welcome to my 7th video. My name is Jensen. Today we are doing another environmental study with the focus being on a picnic. Rather than doing a short script and music for this video, I decided to let the video play and commentate in real time. The first part for it, I like to start off, if I'm doing a reference, using a grid. Sometimes I'll do rule of thirds, but I feel like a grid helps me understand things a little bit more whenever I'm using a reference with a lot of detail. Here I'm starting to lay in my colors. My first order of operations is just filling the page with paint, covering everything. And that way I can at least get an understanding of how the palette's working together, how the shapes are working together. Then once I have the main things done, I can start going in with other colors to add contrast and refine the forms. Whenever I'm painting, I usually cycle between 3 things that I'm working on, which is form, lightness, and color. Whenever I see an area that looks like it needs work, I usually just pick one of the primary focuses. So in the first part in the table, as you're about to see, it's too dark, it's too purple, it doesn't quite fit in the way that I want it to yet. So my first order of operations is I fix the color a little bit. I make it a little bit lighter, but then later I notice that it's competing in colors with the carafe of tea or lemonade. So later on I take out some of the yellow, make it lighter, and so on. This painting was a struggle in some ways. I would say the biggest struggles that I faced painting this were that front chair. In the beginning, I drew it too small. I wasn't using enough perspective, or I wasn't thinking enough about perspective when I was drawing it in terms of how big it was compared to the other chairs. So as you can see throughout the painting, that's something that I go back and fix quite a few times. I feel like if I just would have been a little bit more confident with my first laydown of color, it wouldn't have caused me as many issues. And here I am refining that little lemonade jar again, and then going back to the colors on the table, helping them fit together a little bit more. Now I like the colors on the table, so I'm working on the saturation of the things closest to me, which has been something that it's kind of been new. I mean, I knew that things get more saturated as they come closer, but I guess I never really applied that to things that are in deep shadow. I always did less desaturated shadows, but lately I've been learning that a really saturated shadow, whenever it's really close to you, looks really good, and it makes it just punch a lot more. And so we finally, at this point, get started on the other parts of the table. This is a little rag, and I've done my first brush through of the little bouquet sitting on the table. If I'm being honest, out of all of the iterations of that bouquet throughout this painting, the one that's sitting there right now is my favorite. I almost wish I could have just kept that on there and finished the rest of the painting around it, but that's the joy of painting. You're kind of at the mercy of it sometimes, and that's part of the enjoyment of it. Especially with traditional painting, once you paint over something, it's just gone. I mostly did digital art in high school, so whenever I started getting into traditional, that was definitely the hardest thing to get used to, is the fact that you only get the one piece of paper. You can't go back to previous iterations of it, and you have to learn when to quit. I would say that's the number one biggest learning curve when it comes to traditional art, is learning when to put it down. And so at this point, I've more or less fixed the chair in the front, but as a result, it made the other chairs not quite fit, so I work on refining those shapes and how they fit into that little lemonade jar in front of it. I would say the lemonade jar and the chair, like I said, gave me the biggest struggles in this piece. Whereas the flowers, the little cake, those were, for lack of a better word, a cakewalk. I had a lot of fun doing them, and I feel like no matter where I was in the painting, it was something that I could just pop out in a few brush strokes. So I feel pretty confident whenever it comes to those. At this point, you'll see that I'm adding in some more purple into the wood to help differentiate it from the orange decorations on it, and to kind of give a more understandable palette to the eye and more pleasing to the viewer. And the rag, I liked doing the rag, but like I said, with the chair kind of being the never-ending story, the rag kind of also became the never-ending story. I had fun with this painting for the most part, but there were definitely a lot of struggle times in it. I still really like the end result, and I'm really happy that I did this study. I feel like it really, really helped me understand perspective of things that are near the viewer versus further away. So even though I struggled quite a bit in some parts, I still am really glad that I did it. And like I said, I just keep repeating the things that I said earlier, which is form, lightness, and color. I just kind of go from side to side of the painting, fix one thing, let it rest while I work on something else. And then by the time I come back to it, whatever I need to fix will be a little bit more clear, and the paint will be dry, so I'll be able to work on it immediately. I also like to take quite a few breaks whenever I'm painting. Generally, after every little section, I take a bit of a break. I know that a lot of people recommend that, but it truly is great advice. Just giving your eyes a break from what you're looking at and being able to come back with a fresh set of eyes is really important, especially with something like traditional art. It's really easy to get lost in the angles and get lost in the details of it. And whenever you stand away from it, you realize that there's a lot of mistakes that you didn't see close up. I wish that there was just going back to digital art again, I wish that there was a way to flip the canvas so I could see what's working and what's not. But I keep bringing up digital art so much because I've actually gotten my little tootsies dipped back into it. I've borrowed an iPad from my mom and got myself a little Apple Pencil, and I've been having so much fun with it. I can't believe how nostalgic it makes me feel, and it's kind of ironic because it's digital art, which is, the new thing. So it's silly to be nostalgic over something that's newer than what I'm doing now. But it's been really fun. I wanted to get into digital art again because I've been wanting to make a comic, and I feel like it's not impossible to do a comic solely traditionally, but at least for what I'm trying to do, I feel like it would be a little bit easier. So please keep an eye out for that. I would love to either A, put my speed paints, or B, do other stuff. Oh, and up here we have my very favorite part, which is the delicate little white flowers sitting on top. I feel like it brings the whole painting together, and it's the piece that I was most excited to do. And then afterward I added in some little blackberries for some contrast on the table, and then went back and softened in those edges so they fit in a little bit more. And now for the very best part, and I know you've all been waiting for since the previous painting, which is taking off that painter's tape. So please enjoy the nice little view you are about to receive. This paper did get kind of ripped by the tape, but I don't know if that's just because of the paper's fault or if because the painter's tape is a little too sticky. I used the painter's tape because the washi tape also damaged some of my paper, so I just need to find out exactly what to use. And here I am doing the date. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope to see you on my 8th video. Thank you, and get home safe.